Greetings. Hope we're all feeling well and blessed today. I wanted to talk about, quite generally, my experience as a single parent. It's probably going to be quite a long one, so grab yourself a broom and get comfortable. Maybe put me on in the background while you do your dishes and tidy your bedroom or whatever you need to do. I don't do concise and I don't do editing because I ain't got the time or the patience for editing. And I'm also neurodivergent, so you may find me bouncing backwards and forwards from point to point, so bear with me. And I also refuse to feed into the dopamine addiction fueling nature of social media and online media. So make the space to listen. I share this because on my journey as a single parent so far, it's really hard to find guidance and information on certain stuff, particularly when I was looking into kind of like methods and tips for weaning off breastfeeding. If you follow my journey and have been watching my videos, or if you look on my channel, I've shared kind of a real-time-ish account of my experience trying to wean my toddler off breastfeeding at age 2.5. Well, that's when we started. And all of the guidance that I found was from married women. They were like, oh yeah, so, we just decided that it's time. So now my husband gets up in the night and settles her. It's like, well, I don't have no husband. I don't got no man. So I actually decided to give up on weaning. That's something that I'm going to talk about today as well. Yeah, because I feel like single parents are very underrepresented on this online platform. Probably because we just don't have time to be making content. But, I'm blessed to have this space while my daughter is spending a couple of days with her grandparents. So yeah, here I am. I'm going to try and minimize the pauses. But I'll keep pausing the video. I have to take notes to keep me focused because I can just ramble, and storage isn't on my side as usual. So yeah, get comfortable, and I hope this is of some use to you. Maybe if you are preparing to enter a single parent journey, or maybe just want to gain some insight or support a friend who is a single parent. I just wanted to share some realities of the experience from my own perspective. So it goes without saying that this shit is hard work. But it's the most rewarding hard work I think I will ever do. And it goes without saying that the love that I have for my daughter is unmatched. And I love that you have, no, that's a generalization because, it's not always the case. But I do sometimes question if, or feel on one hand, that single parenthood might actually be easier than like co-parenting or doing it in a partnership. But unless that partnership is like, fully in flow, I really love that I get to do everything on my terms. We can travel together without having to ask permission. There are only our two nervous systems to coordinate and calibrate, rather than trying to do that alongside, another parent. Whereas if you're dealing with a man, can often be very hard work. I did it very briefly, very early in her life, and literally 2 weeks. And then I was like, you're making this harder. It's like having 2 children. So, go and grow up. But I don't have to deal with trying to coordinate somebody who I'm not in flow with, someone who has opposing views. Our connection is so strong, you know, and knowing a lot about kind of attachment theory, I prioritize creating a secure attachment. You know, the idea of success that I have in my head as a parent is raising a child with a secure attachment. You know, I don't care what she wants to do with her life. Well, obviously I care, but you know, that's her choice. But I'm not trying to like rear her through my ideals of the kind of human that I want to create, like career wise, or values wise. Like I accept that she's always going to have her own values and belief systems and want to, you know, will create the life that she wants to create, and I will just support and encourage her in any way, as long as it's not destructive to herself or, you know, abusive to others or the earth. So yeah, my idea of success as a parent is raising a child who is securely attached, and who is kind and compassionate, and who knows how to take care of herself, and who is able to give and receive support and love, and just hasn't grown up with all of the insecurity that I have. You know, but it's a really heavy thing to carry, and a real challenging way to live, trying to be somebody's stable foundation when you don't have one of your own. Like I don't have day-to-day support. I'm really, really blessed to have her grandma on her dad's side, where she goes once a week, and as of a few months ago has started spending the night, which has been life-changing. You know, if you look through my channel, you know, I was making videos like this when I was pregnant, and then there was a long gap up until a few months ago when I was actually able to, you know, make the space to create these videos and express myself, and get into like a creative flow. Whereas a lot of single parents don't have that. It's every day, every night, 24/7, 365 days a year, and they have parent duties, you know, and it's difficult spending time away from her. Like this week in particular, I've had 2 nights, which is not the norm. It just feels like such a long time, and I miss her before I even drop her off. I'm like, I don't actually want to spend time away from you, but I know that I need it for my mental health. And it's important for her to be able to spend time around her family. And I'm just so grateful that they want to be there. And she has such a good time. I just called her just before making this, and she's just jumping around with her cousin, which is so beautiful to see, because I really want to give her siblings, and seeing that just reinforces that one. You know, it like children, they need to be around other children, need to be around their family, and I just wanted her to be surrounded by as much love as possible. But at the same time, it comes with a lot of grief, because she doesn't want me to leave. She wants to be around me, and I want to be around her. And it's a real process actually being able to step out the door when I leave her, even when I'm leaving her, you know, with her friends who she loves and had loads of fun with. She just would rather I was there. And she's always fine, you know. I've kind of like patterned the process now. I just have to leave, you know, a solid like half an hour to get her settled, and say like a long goodbye. And she still sometimes does complain. And obviously I feel that, and she probably picks up on my anxiety about leaving her. You know, the mirror neurons, even up to this age, she's 2 years in 8 months now, 7 months, 8 months. So the mirror neurons are still working really hard. So we feel everything that the other is feeling. But yeah, it comes with a lot of grief, just having to leave her in places and leave her at all, overnight, just so I can have some basic human needs met, so I can rest, so I can take a long bath on my own, so I can exercise, so I can just clean the home, our home, and ride my bike and sit by my tree and write. In an ideal world, there would be another person there day to day who I don't have to ask to go out of their way to be there. Because that's been a big part of the journey. A really difficult part of the journey is learning to ask and receive. Because I do have friends who I can ask, other friends who are parents as well, friends without children. But I kind of don't really ask unless, there's a real genuine need. Still, it's been a practice of asking before I get to the point of crisis, and before I get to the point of burnout. And I say practice because it's still ongoing. I still find myself getting really burnt out before I ask anyone other than, her grandma to take care of her. Right now we're in the summer holidays, so she's not in daycare. So it has been challenging because those 2 days that she's there, I am able to, be more consistent with my practice and get some work done, continue building, rebranding my business. So I've kind of just had to surrender to not being able to do that consistently through the 6-week holidays. Well, it's actually 7 weeks for us. And when you have a background of kind of just not really having support, and you've got abandonment wounds, there's all kinds of self-worth stuff at play that hinders you from being able to ask. I know for me, if someone doesn't explicitly state that they want me to ask them and they want to be there to support, I won't ask still. And even the people who have said that explicitly, I still have this kind of these unhelpful beliefs that they don't actually want to be there. Because my relatives aren't around, my primary caregivers have been neglectful, abusive, up until, the present, while I've been trying to repair the relationship for a long, long time. When there's childhood wounds and then teenage wounds and recent adult wounds on top of that, that's just reinforcing all of the stuff. It's really difficult to trust that people actually want to be there. How can you learn to love and believe that you are worthy of love and support, and believe that you are trustworthy and that people are trustworthy, when the people that brought you into the world have treated you in such a hateful way, and explicitly said that you're not trustworthy, from a young age, and said that from a young age, you're not a nice person. It's a hard lesson to learn later in life when it's been reinforced for 30 years by society, by their continued behaviour, and just kind of how the world is. Puts you in an extremely vulnerable position being a single parent in general puts you in an extremely vulnerable position, and it's so important, even more important, to really do the work on pinpointing your wounds, particularly your parent wounds. If they're still ongoing, like learning to be, like being somebody, having to be somebody's foundation without having a foundation of your own, it's like it's like you're trying to build on quicksand, you know. So yeah, like the work is really important, and I say the work, it's so general and it's ongoing, and I don't think it will ever end. Like it doesn't ever end, you know. That's the human experience, just personal development, and just growing through all of this stuff. But yeah, it opens you up to a lot of mistreatment if you're not kind of like really aware of it. And you know, when my daughter was really young, there was people kind of who have known me for years who were kind of like coming into my life behaving like they wanted to build a friendship, you know, and talk to me about, you know, my experience, what's been going on in life, and, you know, claiming that they want to be there in support of both of us. So, you know, this is when she was, you know, just a few months old. So I was like, yes, please. You know, at this point, I didn't have the circle around me that I have now. Like I was on my own, and she wasn't going to her grandparents that regularly. So I really just didn't have any time to myself. So because I already knew, you know, the people I'm talking about, I was like, oh, okay. And yeah, it was just, you know, opening up. And, you know, after some time, I trusted a person with my daughter, you know, just while I went to the gym, you know, for the first time probably since giving birth, just went to the gym. And felt like, you know, it was the start of creating the village that I know that I needed. But then, you know, not too long after, I realized that wasn't the case. You know, this person was kind of just wanting to know information, and practice for when they had their child, which I knew they wanted children, and I was aware that naturally, you know, her taking care of my child is going to be preparing her for her child. Like I was aware of that, but because I thought that, you know, this person wanted to build a friendship, and be part of my support system and bring her into her community, and circle, I was like, okay, this is just what comes with it. But yeah, I soon realized that that's not the case, and we were essentially being used. And then on a romantic level, like when my daughter was just before she turned 2, I started to feel like I was ready to start dating again, because I do want to have more children, and I do want to find and experience like healthy love, you know, and build that solid support system, so I can show my daughter, my future children, what that is, and that can be their foundation, rather than having a foundation of, you know, hyper independence and like chaos. You know, even though, you know, we have a really peaceful environment here, yeah, I just wanted to bring a healthy, stable, supportive person into our lives. And being the open book that I am, when I did start dating, I was saying all of that. I wasn't, you know, going into a lot of detail about exactly what I've been through. I would touch on it very briefly when it came up in conversation. And even though I have been in multiple manipulative situations before, I guess my naive self just trusted way too quickly, and forgot for a moment that there are people in the world, men particularly, who will take that information and use it to pinpoint your vulnerabilities. And as a single parent, even without saying anything about what you've been through in the past, they know your vulnerabilities, especially if this person or whoever you're dealing with has been raised by a single parent. It's very, very easy for them to know what you need. And the needs are so great, so they can come in and just provide the bare minimum, and it will have such an impact on your life. It can feel like, this person's just the greatest person in the world. So it opens you up to a lot of manipulation, a lot of people just kind of coming in and just taking from you without you realizing. Just to fulfill some kind of need of theirs. So you really do have to beware. Like, I learned this the hard way, but I also bear in mind that, my experience in life so far has resulted in, quite a lot of developmental trauma. So on top of the neurodivergence, I can get hyper fixated on relationships. They become like, especially romantic relationships, they become like a special interest, and just consume so much energy. Like, I give so much energy, energy kind of observing behavior, which I do naturally anyway. I think it's important to do that. But in one way, I'm extremely on guard. But at the same time, I'm extremely naive, and over trusting, and just share too much of myself. And I recognized this, some time ago, like throughout life, all my relationships, or most of my relationships, particularly the ones, through the school years and, the college years, up until late teenhood, was just a string of trying to connect with anybody who will have me around. And a lot of my friends during that time were racist. I was brought up in a predominantly white area, much more diverse now, but when I was growing up, there was an Asian community, but not really in the little part of town that we were living. Yeah, a lot of my friends were racist, like openly racist. But because I had no sense of identity, I was brought up by my mom, who's white, but taken away from my dad's side of the family, like, understandably. But there was no questions answered. There was no explanation of who I was. Like, up until a relatively late age, like probably like in my mid-teens, I thought I was Jamaican. I had no idea that I was Guyanese, and I only connected with the Guyanese side of my family, I think, late teens is when my dad got back in touch and introduced me to, some of his family when I went traveling. But when you have all of that stuff going on, like dealing with humans and being able to discern between abuse and, a healthy relationship, and knowing how to pace yourself, it's just not a thing, because you're just trying to connect. It's a basic human need, is human connection and community, and I've never had that. I still don't, like, since living where I live now, it's the first time where I've lived in an enclosed proximity to a Black community in particular. I've never had any kind of community. Just kind of being raised in that nuclear setup. So yeah, trying to build that when you've had no experience, and kind of learning to trust people. It's just quite an abstract concept to me at the moment. It's not something that I can envision. Like I can imagine it, but with how deep the roots run, yeah, I'm just aware of how much work it takes to decondition and unlearn that. But the first step is awareness, and then another step is being able to talk about it, which is, you know, part of the reason why I create these videos. You know, because I've never been able to, I've always been a naturally expressive person, but not really being able to express myself. It's always, every time I have, as soon as I reached the age where I was like old enough to express myself and challenge things and, you know, do what I want, essentially, that's when all my trouble started. Well, it's not when it started, but that's where it became really clear that, you know, that's not accepted, and I wasn't accepted. And that's when I was ostracized from my family, when I challenged things, and kind of made people, held people accountable, essentially. I didn't have the words for it at that time. I was just kind of trying to talk about how I feel, but, you know, society doesn't want that. You know, it's a generational thing as well. You know, for the most part, people don't want to talk about their feelings. They don't know how to. They're not conditioned to. They're conditioned to work and kind of shut that stuff down. But, you know, when you're the first link in the chain of, you know, intentionally building that emotional intelligence, you're going to get met with a lot of resistance. You're going to get demonized. And there's a very, very, very small pocket of people who are doing this kind of work and who are safe to express like this around. The online space isn't really safe, you know, and it causes me a lot of anxiety creating these videos, but I do so as an act of resistance, you know, and it's, again, for my own development practice, kind of learning to speak openly and coherently. Don't know how I'm doing with that. But I hope I finished the point that I was trying to make. I guess we'll find out when I watch this video back. Yeah, so just to reinforce, learn about narcissism. It's a word that's thrown around a lot. But I think there are a few people who understand the depths of this behavior. It's not just someone who's, you know, really, you know, overtly full of themselves. There are different forms of narcissists, like covert narcissists, where the behavior can easily slip under your radar. They're great actors. They mirror a lot. And the behavior is really subtly dangerous. I've dealt with multiple of these people in my life, and they know how to penetrate deep into your psyche, and they have no empathy. They can perform empathy really well. And when you're a single parent, your compassion, your empathy, your heart opens, you know, so it leaves you especially vulnerable to people like this. And as well, as I said before, like your needs and your vulnerabilities and your wants in life, it's easy to pinpoint them, and it's easy for manipulative people to come into your life and make a huge imprint. And then if that person forms a relationship with your child, it's just really difficult to get out of it. So educate yourself on narcissism, like properly. Dr. Ramani, here on YouTube. Well, she's on most platforms, I think. But she's a great person to start with. Dr. Ramani, Ramani. Yeah. That was part of like a group chat with a few really amazing women up until not too long ago. And I found myself in this point in life when I was just really, really overwhelmed. I couldn't keep up with, keeping in touch with my friends, and staying, like, the place was a mess. Like, the weight of my responsibilities, and including kind of, my mental health stuff, just became like, I was like, how am I supposed to manage this? It was neurodivergence at play. Yeah, I just felt paralyzed. So I came out of most of my group chats. I feel like I want to go into the intricacies of having, I have ADHD. I haven't got an official diagnosis, but I know that I do. And I've been trying to get the diagnosis for over 2 years now. When I first started the process, they said it's about a 2-year wait. When I checked in, just over 2 years later, like, oh, it's now 5 years. So when you have an undiagnosed, like, neurodivergence, it's really hard for you to access the support because, the system doesn't really take you seriously. And there's also, the bureaucracy and the red tape. It's like, well, you need to have a diagnosis to get, whatever support. So I came out of the group, and then, the girls were kind of checking for me, and I was just like, well, I don't feel worthy of anyone's support because there's nothing that I can give back, and I'm big on reciprocity. And even though I know that relationships aren't transactional, like, if I'm just receiving from somebody and I can't give back, I don't feel comfortable. So I was like, I can't keep up with the messages. Like, I feel like I'm only saying something when I've got something to say. I'm not really responding to what other people are saying. I just it just doesn't feel like a balanced conversation. And even though you're offering your support, like, I'm just hesitant to take it because, you've all got your own lives going on. Like, you don't have kids. You can be, wherever you want. And if the support can't be consistent, like, I can be very all or nothing in a lot of sense of the word. So I'm like, I can't open myself up to rely on you when, you could just be gone in a week, or, I could ask you, for like a consistent kind of support, and you're not being able to provide it, then that's just going to trigger all this kind of like abandonment and self-worth stuff. So, kind of like was talking about all of that, and one of the girls provided a really important reminder. It wasn't even a reminder because it wasn't even something that was in my head, but just kind of was like, well, reciprocity doesn't have to be immediate, and nobody's waiting for it. But if that is an important factor to you, then I'm sure you're going to reach a point in life, like, this moment is not forever. Things will get easier, or just a different kind of difficult, really, is what I believe in this parenthood thing. It doesn't get easy, it's just a different shade of difficult, but the space will eventually open up for me to be able to give back, even if that's not right now or in years to come. You just showed, like, such a beautiful level of understanding and support, which, really, really has helped me learn to ask and not feel guilty about receiving. So I just wanted to pass that on. I've been here, lived in this city for just over 7 years now, I think. Yeah, just over 7 years. And I still don't feel integrated into any kind of community. I have a circle of people around me, but it's this feeling of kind of like self-imposed isolation and hyper-independence. It's like a cycle for me, because I've always been a lone wolf. You know, I've traveled a lot on my own, and I'm really comfortable on my own. I still don't really like to make plans with people. Like, I'll tell people, you know, where I'm going, what I want to do, and invite them. I'm like, I will see you there. So yeah, I've always been happy. Still am. I like these 2 days that I've had to myself, been like 2.5 actually. I've just been on my own, in my own space, writing. I love that. And it's only since having a child that I have felt this need for community. Well, I've been aware of the need for community before. I think it was just quite subconscious, that need for connection. But like, the understanding of the importance of community really came having a child, because, as I said before, like, I just want as many people around her, celebrating her, you know, and wanting to show up for her. But being new to a city, I've noticed, like, in the kind of areas that I've resided and kind of been involved in, kind of on the outskirts, and even since connecting with other parents who we have the same conversation about, you know, what we need and wanting to build a village and build community. But then, you know, there's been attempts at actually doing that, you know, trying to come together to take care of each other's children, form like a plan to form, you know, a homeschooling community. But then it kind of like just fizzles out. Or, you know, when I've opened myself up, when I've opened up kind of when we've met, up, there's kind of not really been any kind of aftercare. And like, on the days when I'm feeling more down, I'm like, nobody cares. Like, it's all performative. It's all, you know, no one actually wants to show up. Recognizing at the same time, like, I come from a particular vulnerable place, not having a partner, not having a relative who's there day to day. You know, yes, I have my daughter's dad's family, but I only knew these people, you know, when I was pregnant, and we don't have a relationship really. Just, they're there for Chielu and that's it. And obviously the issues, you know, with her dad. So I recognize that I come from a particularly vulnerable place, and, you know, the way my brain is wired, being raised by an extremely critical parent. Yeah, I've projected a lot of that out, and just I've bounced between, you know, needing and wanting to connect with the community and trying to open myself up and try and show up just as myself, to doing that, you're getting all this anxiety, being rejected, you know, quite explicitly, I would say, on multiple occasions from multiple pockets. And I bounced back to, okay, let me just, you know, be on my own and not try. But then knowing that, you know, that's not a healthy thing, not a healthy place to be isolating from. It was a defense mechanism, and that's not what I want to be teaching my daughter. And I noticed that in giving so much energy to building community and trying building a village, and wanting to meet somebody, like another person, to be there for us and continue building a family where, you know, it's all valid, it's all necessary. But I realized relatively recently that is rooted in my lack of self-worth. Like, I didn't believe that I was enough for her. So where I am now, it's like I've really kind of like circled back to, like, because in my head, I'm like, I know I'm worthy of all these things. You know, I'm worthy of healthy love. I'm worthy of respect. I'm worthy of love. I'm worthy of being accepted as I am in all different ways that I show up day to day. But yeah, I guess like the subconscious mind at play makes me believe that, you know, we need somebody else, you know, we need at least one other person. So yeah, I'm just working on like actually believing that I'm enough for her. And I've realized how much distance, even though we're so close, I've realized how much distance it's put between me and my daughter. And how just me being so preoccupied in other people's behavior and, you know, like focusing. I can't remember who said this, who the quote's from, but goes something like, it's one of the measures of wellness is how much you're thinking about those who don't love you rather than those who do. You know, and that's definitely where I was. I was like so kind of like heartbroken and angry and resentful at all of these people who were supposed to love us, who have abandoned us, and who have kind of like manipulated us, and in this like real victim mindset. And then it clicked. I was like, hang on a second, like, although it's a small number, like these people are so special, you know, the people who do love and accept us, and want to be there, even though they might not be able to show up in the ways that we need and the ways that they want to. Like they are offering, they are giving the love that we need, you know. So why am I spending so much energy on people who don't? You know, and another realization that I came to a while ago was that the people who show up and treat me like shit and are neglectful, I try really hard and spend a lot of energy finding the good in them. Whereas the people who show up in my life and are supportive and like just show love, any instance where, you know, like there's inconsistency or they let me down in one way or another, I'm like, oh yeah, you know, they don't care. And I like colour my whole perspective on this one isolated incident. You know, there's I've been looking into, like, reading into the neuroscience of it. You know, we have a confirmation bias, and, you know, my bias is the neglect. It's your foundation, you know, what you've been taught growing up. So, you know, the subconscious mind is looking for that and looking for that to be reinforced. So yeah, just another reason to really recognize, you know, how your childhood, your attachment to your parents and your siblings and even your extended family and your community shows up within you. So I've only got a couple minutes left of recording. I'm probably going to have to do a part 2 because there are a few more points that I want to talk about, but I just want to finish off just with some things that have helped me recently. You know, my mental health got really bad. I don't know if it was like postnatal depression, you know, the word is thrown around. I don't know if it was postnatal depression or if I have chronic depression, but depression, anxiety just went on to 100. I was getting, you know, intrusive thought. I still do really, but you know, the less kind of like, I feel them a lot less now. I'm just like, okay, intrusive thought, you can go. But yeah, got really bad. So I just wanted to share some of the things that I have done. Like, you know, there's the obvious, you know, staying hydrated, trying to eat well, rest as much as possible, exercise, get fresh air, sitting by a tree, putting my feet on the earth. But the work, oh no, I've only got a few seconds. The work is on rewiring my subconscious. So being a beginner at certain things, such as I'm currently skating, handpan, pole dancing, getting back into